everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Kate Thompson, and this is A Lesson in Real Estate. I thought that I would share with you today some great information and definitions that home buyers need to know and understand in order to be able to navigate the housing market and to be able to purchase the home that they want. A lot of times when home buyers are looking at properties, they are not considering all of the different costs that go along with the purchase of a home. And so I wanted to lay some of those out for you so that you can be sure to ask your real estate professional, your loan officer, or anyone in that capacity that you're involved with the real estate transaction about these costs so that you can be sure that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck. Now, when you're speaking with a real estate professional, a lot of times they will share some of these costs with you up front. They share some of the costs with you during the process, and it's very surprising to home buyers sometimes how much some of these costs are. And so I thought I would share them with you now so that you can do your research and be able to understand what your real estate professionals are speaking of when they refer to some of these costs. So we're going to start now with the home buyers' first cost that they normally incur, and that is the cost of earnest money. And all of my definitions on this episode are coming from the same source, so you only have to go to one source to look them up. So I'll try to not reference it so much, but if you've watched previous episodes, then you know that Investopedia.com is one of my favorite sites to send my viewers to so that they can get definitions for different things that relate to the housing market in layman's terms. So, the earnest money is a deposit made to a seller that represents a buyer's good faith to buy a home. The money gives the buyer extra time to get financing and to do other things such as conduct their title searches, to complete their property appraisals, which is something that we'll get a definition for later, and other inspections before closing. In many ways, the earnest money can be considered a deposit on a home, and a lot of people confuse it with the down payment, and there are two different things, so I do want to point that out. And the earnest money is typically going towards your loan amount. So if you're getting financing, FHA, conventional, something of that nature, then when you're looking at your final closing statement that shows where all the funds are going to be, broken up and how they're going to be divided, that particular line, earnest money, that money is actually deducted from your loan amount. So if you're getting a loan for $150,000, then your earnest money makes that loan amount $149,000. So just so you know that. The next cost that a buyer would incur would be after they have actually made their offer and their offer has been accepted and they're now working to fulfill the conditions of their contract. The home inspection is a report that observes the condition of a real estate property, or so a home and all of the buildings that are surrounding that usually. And it's usually something that you do when you, like I said, when you've actually made your offer and your offer has been accepted. A qualified home inspector is usually what you want to assess the condition of the property, including its heating and cooling systems, plumbing, electrical systems, the water, its water capacities, and the sewage, as well as some fire and safety issues. In addition, the home inspector will look for evidence of insects, such as termites, damage due to water or fire, or any other issues that may affect the safetiness of the home and the home's value. So usually you're wanting to get your inspections done within the first couple of weeks. I would say on average, people are getting those done within the first 10 days after they've had their offer accepted and it is a contract. If you are working with the home inspector, that is a cost that you can control. It just depends on the size of the house, the appraiser's difficulty in inspecting all of the sections of the home. That usually determines the cost. Typically, anything that you're purchasing as far as a home that's over 2,500 square feet is going to be a little bit more of a cost than, say, the home that you're purchasing that is less than 2,500 square feet. And different home inspectors do different things. So if you have a home inspector that doesn't, go into crawl spaces, that could be an issue for you if you have a home that has a crawl space. If you have a steep chimney because you have vaulted ceilings, some inspectors do not walk vaulted ceilings. So these are things that you want to ask when you're shopping around for an inspector, specifically what systems and what areas of the home are they going to inspect for you for that particular cost. You want to have an inspector that will preferably walk both your roof and inspect your crawl space, which is the area under the house that separates the floor from the slab. The next term that we're going to discuss, and it's also a buyer's cost, is going to be the appraisal. The appraisal is actually a report that provides a valuation of the properties, and it's also going to set the value for it. So if you're working with a lender who is offering you any sort of loan, such as FHA, conventional, USDA, VA, any of those loans, then the lender is usually going to only offer you to purchase the property a certain amount of the appraised value. So in the case of an FHA loan, you would get up to 96.5% of that. And so if you're looking at that from round numbers, $100,000 is, if that's your purchase price, and you're getting an FHA loan, then the lender will loan you up to 96.5% of that, which is $96,500. And your appraisal, though, in order for the lender to give you that full amount, that $96,500, has to appraise for that. Now, if you are in the process of purchasing a home, and let's just say you do make an offer, and your offer is accepted for $100,000, and the lender comes back with the appraisal, and the appraiser has given the value, given a value that is less than $100,000, and you still want to move ahead with proceeding to purchase, then you would just have to come up with the difference of what the lender is giving you and what the home is being sold for in order to make the deal work. There are some instances, however, where your appraisal will come back and it will be there will be a value there that is more than what you have written up in your contract. If that's the case, then you just count that as equity. You don't have to go back and forth with the seller to change the price if your home that you're purchasing is valued at more than what you have it listed for. You could, in fact, do that if the appraised value comes back at less than what's on your actual contract. But the seller does not have to accept that appraised value. The seller can say that I still want to sell for $100,000 if you're, and I'm just using that number because that was the number that I used from the, previous example. And if the house is worth less than that, then the seller can say, hey, I still want to sell for $100,000. And in most cases, depends on where you are and the specific situations of your individual transaction, that you will be able to walk away from that and, not suffer any damage as a result of that, other than a little bit of lost time because, you've gone through that. And also, you are not due back, in most cases, the amount that you spent for a home inspection. So just a rule of thumb, it's good to try to have both of those things going at the same time if you can, because if the appraisal gets done and the value is less than what you agreed to in the original contract and you're not willing to pay more, then if you've gotten that appraisal done and you haven't had the inspection yet, then you can possibly save those monies that you would have spent on the inspection for the next transaction that you get yourself locked into. So the next term that we're going to discuss is a down payment. And like I said, most people confuse the down payment with the earnest money, but they are two separate things. This is also a source of the definition that is coming from Investopedia. As I stated before, all of the definitions are coming from Investopedia, so we'll just go with what Investopedia says here. A down payment is a type of instrument, or a type of payment, I should say, often in cash, made in the early stages of a purchase of an expensive good or service. That includes a house. The down payment requires a percentage of the full purchase price. In some cases, the down payment is not refundable if the deal falls through because of the fault of the purchaser. In most cases, the purchaser makes financing arrangements to cover the remaining amount owed to the seller. So basically, the down payment is the amount of money that you're going to put down in order to secure the loan. That is the way that we use down payment in most cases in terms of real estate. The down payment is usually a percentage of what the cost of your house is going to be. So let's go back to our $100,000 example. If you are getting a $100,000 home and you're using an FHA loan, the FHA loan again is only going to give you 96.5% of the purchase price of that $100,000. Your down payment is going to be the other 3.5% that's lacking. So in that case of $100,000, you would need to come up with $3,500 in order to have your down payment for the purchase of your home. So the $3,500 and the 96.5 or 96,500, I should say, together equal $100,000, and that will be the purchase price for the home. Now, normally you don't need to submit the $3,500 to a lender. You would just bring that to closing when it's time for you to sign off on the final paperwork in order to complete the sale of the home, or the purchase, I should say, in the case of a buyer. But you do need those funds to be sitting aside somewhere for most lenders so that they can see that you have that money available to use when the time comes. The next term that we're going to look at is closing costs. Closing costs are also very different from the earnest money, but people tend to lump those together in their thinking, so I thought it was very important to separate them. And closing costs are considered the expenses over and above the property's purchase price that buyers and sellers usually incur in order to complete the real estate transaction. Costs incurred may include loan origination fees, discount points, appraisal fees, title searches, title insurance, surveys, taxes, deed recording fees, and credit report charges. Prepaid costs of those that recur over time, such as property taxes and homeowners insurance. The lender is required by law to state these costs in a loan estimate form, formerly known as a good faith estimate, or GFE. Now they call it a closing estimate. And you're to get that from your lender within 3 days of making your home loan application. Gifts of equity are also things that can have a buyer or seller incur closing costs. And so gift of equity is something that we can talk about on a different program or a different show. It's actually something that I just went through with one of my clients, someone giving away the gift of equity to someone else. And there are different things that you would need to know about that should that happen. So we'll discuss that on a different episode. But those are what closing costs could be. They could be all of those things encompassed together, or they could be things that are broken up that you pay for over time, but they're all rolled up into that one general term. The next thing that I want to discuss, which has really been a hot item in the last couple of years in the real estate industry, is the realtor fees or realtor commissions. Most people who buy or sell a home do so with the help of a licensed real estate agent or professional. These professionals generally know their local markets, have superior negotiating skills, and can generally make the entire buying and selling process easier. In exchange for their expertise, realtors and real estate agents earn a commission. So realtors don't get paid until you buy a home or until they sell your home. And so here's a look at how real estate commissions work and who can pay for those fees. Real estate commissions are always negotiable, but are often set between the real estate agent who is listing a home and the seller. Once they have agreed, then if someone brings a buyer's agent procures a buyer who is interested, they make an offer on the home that another agent has listed, and that offer becomes a contract. Then the listing agent is usually responsible for paying the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent is generally paid from the fee that the seller and the listing agent work out as payment for him for selling the home. Real estate agents, like I said, are always able to negotiate those fees, but they generally range between 4 and 6% of the purchase price. So if we're going to use a round number, that $100,000 number, if you're a seller, then you're gonna pay an agent 6% of that. Then you're usually going to pay them $6,000, and then they are going to split that $6,000 with the buyer's agent. Now, there are some instances where a seller says, hey, I don't want to work with or pay for two agents. That usually happens in the case of for sale by owner situations, at which point the seller may pay his listing agent, but may not pay your buyer's agent. That doesn't mean that the buyer's agent doesn't get paid. That just means that the buyer is responsible for covering the cost of the commission for their buyer's agent, I should say. And there's another form of payment that an agent can receive, and it is called an admin fee. And usually agents charge admin fees if they have to incur extra costs for marketing your property, helping to get it staged, if they're having to do some travel and they're having to search out properties and look at properties on behalf of their buyers because their buyers can't show up. There are a number of reasons that you may incur an agent's transaction fee. Most real estate companies are making an effort to keep up with all of the paperwork that goes along with your specific transaction. And so if that's the case and they're holding on to it and they have to pay for storage of those documents, those things can be passed along to you. So not only would you possibly have the expense of paying for your agent, whether you're a buyer or a seller, you also may have the expense of an admin fee. And those fees are definitely negotiable. So before you sign up with a specific agent, make sure that you talk to them about the fees and how they expect to be compensated for the work that they do on your behalf. The next and final term that I think is most important for a home buyer to know when they are dealing with a real estate transaction is about the loan origination fees. This term is a term that is a lot of times used by your lender, and it definitely fits the definition. A mortgage loan origination fee is an upfront fee charged by a lender to process a new loan application. The fee is compensation for executing the loan. Loan origination fees are quoted as a percentage of the total loan, and they are generally between 0.5 and 1% of the mortgage loan, and that's if you're purchasing a home in the United States. Sometimes referred to as discount fees or points, loan origination fees, particularly when they equal 1% of the amount borrowed. Origination fees pay for services such as processing, underwriting, and funding. So a loan origination fee can also be a point. I discussed this on a previous episode, but some buyers are in a position to pay down points, so that makes your interest rate cheaper. And the interest rate is the amount of money that you're going to pay back on the money that you borrowed. So if you wanted to make the amount that you're paying back less, You can get a cheaper interest rate in a lot of instances. Everybody's situation is different. I do want to stress that. And so you're usually paying $1,000. I believe it's for a quarter of a point. So if you wanted a 1 whole point shaved off of your interest rate, you would need to come up with an additional $4,000. And even though these fees that I'm speaking of are considered upfront costs, a lot of times they are not due until you actually show up to the closing table. The only fee that I've discussed so far where that is not the case is the earnest money deposit or the earnest money payment. The earnest money payment is something that you pay immediately or as soon as possible after your contract has been accepted. All of these fees should be discussed if you're a home buyer and if you're a home seller so that you know exactly how much you will need to have at the closing table. There are also other things that you can do to negotiate that I want to point out here. You can negotiate the amount of earnest money that you're putting down. A lot of times agents will just, real estate professionals, realtors, and real estate agents will just put in a number that they think will help to get your offer accepted. It is okay for you to explain to your real estate agent that you want to negotiate that and then put them to work to getting, you the best price for that. But that usually doesn't happen. So that's why I'm pointing that out now. The appraisal is something that is not a fee that is normally negotiable. The way appraisals work is your lender puts out a work order for an appraisal to be completed on the house that you want to purchase, and then they get back pricing for that. And after they've gotten that pricing back, they pass it along to you. I also want to point out to you as a buyer that even though you're paying for the appraisal, typically the appraisal belongs to the lender. So if you wanted to share that appraisal or do something with it, in the future, then you would have to work with your lender in order to make sure that that's okay for you to do that. Your down payment is also something that is not necessarily negotiable. If you're getting an FHA loan and they're giving you 96.5%, your lender that is, then you have to put down 3.5% in order to make the loan be $100,000. On conventional loans, you can, the minimum amount typically is 5%. But you can work with your lender to put down more money to see how that affects your monthly payment and actually what you would have to take out for a loan. So you do want to talk to your lender about the origination fees and how you can negotiate those to get those down as cheap as possible. I also would like to point out that closing costs is something that you can ask your lender to cover part of for you. Each state has their own individual legal limits for the amount that a seller can pay on behalf of the buyer when it comes to closing costs. But in a typical balanced market, that is usually something that you can negotiate pretty easy, and make it fair for both sides, especially if you're giving the seller everything that they want out of the purchase. In the market that we're in right now, sellers tend to have more control because of the lack of inventory that we have. There are way more buyers right now looking to purchase a home, and so sellers are in a better position to negotiate with you that they don't pay any of that. So you want to be making sure that you're saving all of the monies for these different things that I mentioned, because if it comes down to it and you can't negotiate with the seller to cover the cost of some of your closing costs, then that's money that you'll have to have at the end of the transaction to be able to secure your loan and to ultimately purchase the home that you want. When it comes to your realtor fees, those are also very much negotiable. Typically, if you're working as a seller, that's one of the things that you're worried about first. And as real estate professionals, we want to make sure that, we're creating a win-win situation for you. So it's always good to be clear about, who's going to pay the realtor in the event that they work on your behalf as a buyer. If you are asking your realtor to show you homes or to help you to get access to homes that are for sale by owner, then you definitely need to be prepared to pay your buyer's agent, because it is a very good chance that you could love the house, but for whatever reason, the seller isn't willing to pay an agent. And you want to be able to get the best service possible from your agent, so it's always good to have all of these things worked out before you actually take the plunge and write an offer on a home. So those are some of the things that you have to look at when you're purchasing a home as a buyer. Some of these things are also very important to consider if you're a seller as well. Like I said, when you're listing your home as a seller, then you want to be able to make sure that, if necessary, you can work it out so that you can negotiate, covering the cost of some of these fees for the buyer. It really depends on the market that you're in, the type of home that you have, and who would be attracted to that, amongst other things. And usually when you're working with a specific type of buyer, they may not ask you to cover any of those things, which definitely makes it more attractive. So in our market that we're in now, and this is on a national level, a lot of home buyers are foregoing home inspections because they're thinking that if they don't get the home inspected, then that makes it more attractive for a seller to accept their offer. And that is generally the case in a lot of situations. However, when you are foregoing things like that, such as the different inspections that you have to have, or you're purchasing a home and you're just allowing the purchase to take place with a quick claim deed, and you're not paying for, say, a title search to be sure that you're getting a free and clear title, then those things can come back to haunt you in the end. Once you've moved into this home where there's not been a proper inspection done and things pop up that are wrong with the home, then you definitely have no recourse to go back to the seller in most cases to try to recoup funds that you might have had to spend out in order to make a repair, or to really say that, the seller sold you something that they knew, had issues. So that is the importance of things such as a home inspection. And also the home inspection can point out lender required repairs that may be necessary to be completed in order for you to move forward. Those things are usually safety and health and safety issues that are being pointed out. And those things, especially with the FHA loan and VA loans, those things are specifically things that would need to be fixed in order for you to secure the home. Even if you've looked at 100 houses, even if you have a cousin, family member, a friend, or someone that's in construction that does, that type of work, you definitely want to get someone who is qualified to look for specific things that a lender might, ding as a bad thing, and that can ultimately prevent you from being able to get the home that you want. A professional home inspector knows what your lender is looking for in order to be able to write that loan for you. Your friend or family member or colleague or whatever who is not a licensed home inspector but may be a contractor may not always have that information, and they may say that things need to be repaired that don't need to be repaired, and they could definitely miss things that should be repaired for a lender that aren't. So I hope that I've given you some good information today, information that will help you in your home buyer search. It's always great if you're a home buyer to have as much money saved as possible so that you can cover as many of these costs on your own. It only helps your offer to look more attractive, and it gives you much more leverage in securing the home that you want. So with these things being said, I'd like to thank you so much for joining me. Again, my name is Kate Thompson, and this has been A Lesson in Real Estate. Until next time, take care of yourself and stay safe out there. Bye now.